Picture this. It's the middle of August. There hasn't been a drop of rain in 6 weeks. Your neighbor's hydrangeas are crispy brown skeletons. The lawn is the color of straw. And then winter rolls in. That brutal kind of winter where the temperature drops to -20 and stays there for days, killing every borderline plant in the neighborhood. Now picture your yard in the middle of all that. 11 mature bushes, dark green, full of fruit, completely untouched. You haven't watered them in 4 years. You haven't covered them. You haven't done anything except harvest. That's not a fantasy. That's what happens when you plant the right species. Most gardeners spend their entire lives fighting their climate, dragging hoses around, draping frost cloth, replacing dead plants every spring. And the whole time, there's a small group of perennial bushes that evolved in the harshest places on Earth, plants that laugh at 30 degrees and shrug off 6-month droughts. Today, I'm going to walk you through 11 of them. You'll get the science of why they survive, the exact zones, the spacing, the yield numbers, and the 1 or 2 pitfalls that can still trip you up. And bush number 1 on this list is so tough that the Soviet Union used it to reforest land destroyed by industrial pollution. It survived where literally nothing else could. Let's get into it. Number 11, Siberian Pea Shrub, Caragana arborescens. The name tells you most of what you need to know. This plant comes from Siberia, where winter means 40 and summer means dust. It's been used as a windbreak and shelter belt species across the Canadian prairies for over a century, and there's a good reason for that. It's a legume. The roots fix atmospheric nitrogen, so it builds soil while it grows. It also produces small edible peas that are about 36% protein by weight, which is comparable to soybeans. It grows 10 to 15 feet tall, hardy in zones 2 through 7, and it'll survive on 10 inches of annual rainfall without complaint. Planted in full sun, any soil, even straight sand or compacted clay. Space them 4 to 6 feet apart for a hedge or 8 to 10 feet for individual specimens. Water it the first season to get the roots down, and after that, you can forget it exists. It blooms with bright yellow pea flowers in late spring, feeds bees, and the seed pods develop through summer. The wood is strong, the form is elegant, and once established, it can live 50 years on the worst land you have. The one thing to know is that the seeds need cooking before eating, just like other legumes. But for chickens, livestock, soil building, wind protection, and a backup protein source, this one is bulletproof. And next up is a bush most gardeners have completely written off as a tree. Number 10, Sea Buckthorn, Hippophae rhamnoides. This is one of the most nutritionally dense fruits on the planet, and almost nobody in North America is growing it. The berries contain 12 times more vitamin C than oranges by weight, plus omega-3, omega-6, omega-7, and omega-9 fatty acids in a single fruit, which is genuinely rare in nature. Russia, China, and Germany have multi-million-dollar industries built around sea buckthorn oil. Here, you can plant it in your backyard for under $30 a bush. Sea buckthorn is hardy from zone 3 through zone 8, tolerates 40 degrees, and survives long droughts because it's another nitrogen fixer with deep taproots that pull water from 6 to 10 feet down. It also tolerates salt, which is why it grows wild on European seacoasts. You need a male and a female plant for fruit, roughly 1 male to every 6 to 8 females. Space them 6 to 10 feet apart, plant in full sun, and pick soil that drains. Even sandy or rocky soil works. Mature bushes produce 15 to 25 pounds of bright orange berries per plant. The berries are tart, almost like passion fruit crossed with citrus, and they're fantastic in juice, jam, and oils. The thorns are real, so wear thick gloves at harvest. Plant once and this thing produces for 30 years. Up next, a desert native that handles cold better than most people realize. Number 9, Apache Plume, Fallugia paradoxa. If you live in a dry climate and you've ever wished you could grow something that flowers all summer without a drop of supplemental water, this is your bush. Apache Plume is native to the American Southwest and the high plateau country of Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. It survives in places that get 8 inches of rain a year, and it's hardy down to Zone 4, which means it handles real winter, not just mild southwest winter. It grows 4 to 6 feet tall, produces white rose-like flowers from late spring through fall, and the spent flowers turn into feathery pink seed plumes that look like puffs of smoke covering the entire bush. Indigenous peoples used the flexible stems for arrow shafts and the leaves in traditional remedies. From a botanical standpoint, what makes Apache Plume so drought-resistant is its dual root system. Shallow lateral roots capture every bit of light rain, while a deep taproot mines moisture from far below the surface. The leaves are tiny and resinous, which dramatically cuts water loss. Plant in full sun, in lean rocky or sandy soil. Skip the compost. This plant actually performs worse in rich soil. Space them 4 to 6 feet apart. Water the first summer, then never again. It's deer-resistant, pest-free, and completely ignored by most nurseries, which is exactly why most gardeners have never seen one. And now we're moving into a true food producer. Number 8, Manchurian Apricot. Prunus mandshurica. Most people hear apricot and think California, mild winters, careful pruning. The Manchurian apricot is from northeastern China, and it laughs at all of that. It's hardy to Zone 3, tolerates 40 degrees, and produces fruit reliably in places where commercial apricots would die in their first winter. It grows 15 to 20 feet tall, although you can keep it pruned as a large multi-stem bush at 10 to 12 feet. The flowers open in early spring with a pink-white burst, and the small golden apricots ripen in midsummer. Yield from a mature bush ranges from 30 to 70 pounds in a good year. The fruit is smaller than a commercial apricot, about 1.5 inches across, but the flavor is intense, sweet tart, and the kernel inside the pit is also edible after proper processing. Plant in full sun, well-drained soil, ideally on a slight slope so cold spring air drains away from the blossoms. Space them 12 to 15 feet apart. The roots go deep, and once the bush is 3 years old, it survives on natural rainfall in most of the continental U.S. The one risk is late spring frost hitting the early blossoms, so plant on a north-facing slope if you have one. That delays bloom and protects the fruit. Up next, a native shrub that quietly thrives in conditions that kill almost everything else. Number 7. American Hazelnut. Corylus americana. This is one of the most underrated food security plants in North America. It's native from Maine all the way to Georgia and west into the Great Plains, which means it evolved to handle continental extremes. Bitter cold, blazing summers, dry spells, ice storms. It survives all of it. American hazelnut grows 10 to 16 feet tall, hardy in zones 4 through 9, and it produces edible nuts inside frilly green husks every fall. A mature bush yields 5 to 10 pounds of nuts per plant. The nuts are 60% fat and rich in protein, which makes them shelf-stable, calorie-dense food that stores for over a year without refrigeration. Research from Rutgers and Oregon State has produced new hybrid varieties, like Jefferson and Theta, that resist eastern filbert blight, which used to be the one limiting factor. Plant at least 2 bushes for cross-pollination. Space them 4 to 5 feet apart for a hedge or 10 to 15 feet for individual production. They tolerate full sun to partial shade, accept any decent soil, and once established, they survive on rainfall alone in zones with at least 20 inches of annual precipitation. They also send up suckers, so over time a single bush becomes a small thicket that produces more and more. Plant once, harvest forever, and this one really means it. Now we're getting to a bush with one of the most brutal survival stories in the plant world. Number 6, Russian olive. Elaeagnus angustifolia. I'll address the controversy first. Russian olive is considered invasive in some western U.S. states, so always check your local regulations before planting. But where it's legal, this bush is a survival miracle. It tolerates Zone 2 to Zone 7, handles 50 degrees, grows in pure sand, pure clay, salty soil, alkaline soil, and survives droughts that kill almost everything else. It's another nitrogen-fixing species, which means it builds soil while it grows. The silver-gray foliage is unmistakable, and the small yellow flowers in late spring are intensely fragrant. The fruit is a small olive-shaped berry that's edible, somewhat mealy, but high in lycopene, vitamins A and C, and antioxidants. Birds love them. A mature bush reaches 15 to 20 feet, produces hundreds of berries per season, and lives 50 years or more. Plant in full sun, space 10 to 15 feet apart, water the first year, then walk away. It tolerates urban pollution, road salt, drought, flood, and brutal cold. If your local laws permit, it's hard to find a tougher windbreak or wildlife plant. If they don't, the autumn olive and silverberry are close cousins worth investigating depending on your state. Up next, a flowering bush that's both ornamental and absolutely fearless. Number 5. Lilac. Syringa vulgaris. Almost every old farmhouse in the northern U.S. has a lilac bush by the back door. There's a reason for that. Settlers brought them from Europe in the 1700s, planted them once, and watched them outlive entire generations of the family. Lilacs are hardy to Zone 2 in some varieties, handle 40 degrees, tolerate drought once established, and routinely live 100 years or more with zero care. There are abandoned farms in New England with lilacs still blooming next to nothing but a chimney foundation. The fragrance in May is the kind of thing that stops people in their tracks. From a biological standpoint, lilacs survive extreme conditions because they go fully dormant in winter, store enormous reserves in their woody root crown, and wake up only when soil temperatures are reliably above freezing. This protects them from late frosts that kill more delicate flowering shrubs. Plant in full sun, in well-drained, slightly alkaline soil. Space 8 to 12 feet apart for individual bushes or 4 to 5 feet for a hedge. Water the first year only. Prune right after flowering, since they bloom on old wood. Common lilac reaches 8 to 15 feet. Dwarf varieties like Miss Kim or Bloomerang stay 4 to 5 feet. The flowers are also edible, work beautifully in syrups, sugars, and shortbread. And in extension reports, lilacs are listed as one of the lowest water requirement flowering shrubs in temperate gardening. Next up is a bush that's been feeding people on the Great Plains for thousands of years. Number 4. Chokecherry, Prunus virginiana. Native peoples across North America used chokecherry as a primary food source long before European settlement. The Lakota, Cheyenne, and Blackfeet pounded the berries with bison meat and fat to make pemmican, which kept for years and fueled travel across the plains. That's the level of resilience and food value we're talking about. Chokecherry is hardy from Zone 2 through Zone 7, survives 50-degree winters, and tolerates extended drought because it sends down a deep taproot in its first 2 years. It grows 10 to 25 feet tall as a multi-stem bush, suckers freely to form thickets, and produces clusters of small, dark purple cherries every August. A mature bush yields 10 to 30 pounds of fruit, and research from North Dakota State University Extension lists improved varieties like Canada Red and Schubert as both ornamental and high-yielding. Plant in full sun, in any well-drained soil. Space them 6 to 10 feet apart. The fresh fruit is astringent. The name chokecherry is literal, but cooked into jelly, syrup, or wine, it's outstanding. Important note: the leaves and pits contain cyanogenic compounds and should never be consumed raw. The cooked fruit is completely safe and has been used for millennia. Up next, a bush most people associate with roses, never realizing it's one of the toughest food plants on Earth. Number 3. Rosa rugosa. The beach rose. This is the rose that grows wild on the sand dunes of Cape Cod and the coasts of Maine, where it's hammered by salt spray, wind, frozen winters, and bone-dry summer sand. It's hardy in zones 2 through 7, completely indifferent to salt, drought, and cold, and it produces enormous nutritional rose hips every fall. A single rose hip contains as much vitamin C as 60 oranges, and studies from the University of Copenhagen have shown that rose hip powder reduces inflammation markers in joint-related conditions. The bushes grow 4 to 6 feet tall, sucker into dense thickets, and bloom from June through frost with deep pink, red, or white flowers that smell like classic old-fashioned rose. After the petals drop, the hips swell to the size of cherry tomatoes and turn brilliant orange-red by September. Plant in full sun, in poor sandy or rocky soil. Skip the fertilizer. Skip the rich compost. Rosa rugosa actually flowers and fruits better in lean conditions. Space 3 to 5 feet apart for a hedge. Water the first season, then never again. It's deer-resistant due to dense thorns, virtually pest-free, and a single mature bush can produce 5 to 10 pounds of hips per year. Dry them, powder them, or simmer them into syrup. Plant once, harvest for 30 years. And we're getting to the top 3 now. Number 2, currants and gooseberries, ribes species. I'm grouping these because they're closely related and they share the same superpower. Both currants and gooseberries are native to cold climates across the northern hemisphere, hardy to zone 3, and they handle drought far better than most berry plants because their root system is dense, fibrous, and concentrated in the top 2 feet of soil where most rainfall actually penetrates. Black currants in particular are nutritional powerhouses. Research from the New Zealand Institute for Plant and Food Research shows black currants contain 4 times the vitamin C of oranges and significant amounts of anthocyanins linked to cardiovascular benefits. A single mature bush produces 5 to 10 pounds of fruit per season, and they start bearing in their second year. Plant in full sun to partial shade, in well-drained soil with a touch of compost at planting. Space them 4 to 5 feet apart. They need very little ongoing water once the root system is established, typically by year 2. Prune out the oldest stems each winter to keep production high. Modern varieties like consort black currant and Hinnenmaki gooseberry resist white pine blister rust, which used to be a problem in some U.S. states. Productive lifespan is 15 to 25 years. And bush number 1 is the one I promised at the top, the Soviet reforestation hero. Number 1, sea berry willow. Hippophae salicifolia and its cousins, plus the broader category of cold-hardy willow species used for the same purpose. But the real star here, and the bush I want to focus on, is the Saskatoon Serviceberry. Amelanchier alnifolia. This is the bush the Soviet Union and the Canadian government both turned to when they needed to reforest land after industrial damage and prairie drought, because nothing else could establish on that soil. Saskatoon is native to Western Canada and the northern Great Plains. Hardy to Zone 2, survives 50 degrees, tolerates drought, alkaline soil, salt, and wind that flattens lesser plants. The berries look like blueberries, taste like a cross between blueberry and almond, and contain higher levels of manganese, magnesium, and antioxidants than commercial blueberries. Research from the University of Saskatchewan has documented yields of 15 to 30 pounds per mature bush from improved varieties like Northline, Smoky, and Thiessen. The bushes grow 6 to 15 feet tall, bloom with white flowers in early spring, and ripen fruit in late June through July. Plant in full sun, in any well-drained soil, even rocky or sandy ground. Space 4 to 6 feet apart for a hedge. Water the first 2 summers, then they're entirely self-sufficient. They live 30 to 50 years, sucker mildly to form a sustainable patch, and survive conditions that would kill peaches, apples, and almost every commercial berry. This is the ultimate combination of food production and bulletproof resilience. If you only plant one bush from this entire list, this is the one. Here's the bonus strategy that ties all of these together. Most people fail with so-called drought-tolerant bushes because of one mistake in the first year. They underwater the plant the first season. Drought tolerance is something a bush develops, not something it arrives with. The roots have to grow deep enough to reach moisture below the dry zone, and that takes one full growing season of regular watering, usually about an inch per week. After that first year, you cut back dramatically. By year 2, you're watering once a month in extreme drought only, and by year 3, the bush is genuinely independent. Skip the first year watering and you'll lose plants that should have lived 50 years. Combine that with mulch, 3 to 4 inches of wood chips around the base, and you've created the conditions where these bushes can do exactly what they evolved to do. Survive without you. Let's recap our 11 perennial bushes that survive both frost and drought. Number 11, Siberian Pea Shrub, the nitrogen-fixing protein producer that handles 40. Number 10, Sea Buckthorn, more vitamin C than oranges and indifferent to cold or salt. Number 9, Apache Plume, the southwestern flowering bush that needs almost no rain. Number 8, Manchurian Apricot, real fruit production in Zone 3. Number 7, American Hazelnut, native protein and fat for the long haul. Number 6, Russian Olive, where legal, the ultimate windbreak in salty, alkaline soil. Number 5, Lilac, the heritage flowering shrub that outlives houses. Number 4, Chokecherry, ancient food source of the Great Plains. Number 3, Rosa rugosa, the beach rose that thrives on neglect. Number 2, Currants Gooseberries, the cold climate berry workhorses. And number 1, Saskatoon Serviceberry, the bulletproof food security bush. Plant any one of these and you'll have a productive shrub for decades. Plant several of them together, and you've built something closer to a self-sustaining food forest than a garden. When you start working with bushes that evolved on the Mongolian steppe, the Siberian taiga, the Canadian prairies, and the high deserts of the American West, your relationship with your yard changes completely. You stop fighting the climate, you stop dragging hoses, you stop replacing dead plants every spring. These bushes were producing food and surviving extremes thousands of years before anyone owned a garden hose, and they'll keep doing it long after we're gone. The work is in the first year, choosing the right species, getting them in the ground, watering deeply while the roots find their way down. After that, the bushes take over. Plant once, harvest for decades, and let the plants do what they've always known how to do.